Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of the Kickback. If you do like what you see, hit like, make a comment, and please do subscribe. You should find the audio quite better. I've upgraded my PC, so that gets rid of that annoying little thing. But I mean, I've already said it to him. It is very surreal for me to be sat here today with the man who we're talking to. He was my first look into sort of the FM content creation side, and if I hadn't have stumbled across him, would I be doing this? I'd probably say no. It's none other than DoctorBenjy FM, Ben Carr. Ben, mate, how are you doing?
I'm good. It's all my fault. For the viewers of this, I'm so sorry that you have to deal with him. I take full responsibility. But,
you are inadvertent one of the creators of Wasted Possession.
Well, put it on the blog, put it on the site, but wherever it needs to go, I'll take some credit, some small amount of credit for it.
Nah, but I mean, you've had an action-packed weekend. I'm sure we'll get into everything because it was quite nice to see what went on from sort of our perspective. But I'll start the sort of first question the same way. We always start the same way in terms of what footballing moment did you first see that pulled you into the game? Not necessarily the first footballing moment you saw, the first one that you saw it and you were like, this is for me.
I remember going to, so we moved from Lincolnshire to Norfolk in sort of 94, 95. So, and I'm a lot younger than Alujo, despite being a lot older than most people. And we had my dad worked within the tourist industry locally, and he knew the guy that hired him said, come on to a Norwich game. And it was Norwich's final game of the season when they were relegated from the Premier League in 94, 95. And I stood on a chair, and as Norwich scored, I jumped up, which on the plastic chairs at football, wrong move as a 4-year-old. And I grazed my knee, and I cried the whole way home. But then I thought, I want to go back there again, and I want to go and hurt my legs again.
You want to redeem yourself and not hit your knee.
I think that, yeah. So I think when it's like, even though I cried all the way home, it was like I really loved that, and I want to go do that again. And then I picked up playing and played forever. Already played for 20 years, okay. And miss it. I don't play now, but I miss it a lot. But yeah, that was grazing my knee was the entry point into football, I think.
No, fair enough. So, I mean, you said you played for years. What sort of positions did you play? Were you any good? Is also, a big one.
I was all right back in my era. I was okay. I was sort of more of a central midfielder. So when I was younger, I was put at the back because it was a case of he can kick it far. So just put him at the back. I was quite tall at that point. But then, towards the age of sort of 11, 12, I got a little bit better. I was in the PDC, the Player Development Centre at Norwich, and worked my way up to know a few boys around that area as well. So got to an okay level, and then later in my youth career, I had quite a few injuries which sort of stopped any progression to go to a higher level. But then I found myself in goal, and I quite enjoyed that as well, and got invited back to some PDC training as a goalkeeper. So I was a jack of all trades, master of none, basically. And then injuries just stopped everything. But that's the story of pretty much every footballer that doesn't play at the age of 30. So I think that's the way it tends to go.
Now, I do remember that clip of you as a goalkeeper making it save and going, come on.
Oh yeah, it was a bit passionate for an under 16s like youth football, but it was a great save though. So I mean, it was. Give it up.
So from that point, did you is there anybody who you sort of knew at that point who then went on to do something in the game? A few of the
academy boys. They're in sort of separate sections of the academy. It was quite split. But players like Tom Adeyemi went on to be a professional footballer. Chris Martin was a few years older. Corey Smith went on to play a pretty high level towards the latter point. So there's definitely boys around that age. I think a few of them came a little later, but they were all sort of around, and a few of them went on to be decent, standard professional footballers. I would say. I don't think they'd remember me. That's fine. I wouldn't be offended. It wasn't a massive amount of time. So yeah. I mean, Norwich. It's funny if you grow up in Norfolk, you have one option, and it's will Norwich go watch you play at some point. And if they don't, you never play professionally. But if they do, you've got a tiny chance. Okay. So yeah, it was quite funny like that. Really.
Were you particularly long when they picked you up or anything?
Yes, it was in my younger years. Yeah, but it was a case of it was like that for everyone. Every professional club would just hoover up talent. So you'd go for trial days all the time. So it was I couldn't give you a date. It was just one of those things. Eventually, it would just pop off.
So I mean, we've had a lot of Norwich so far, but I can see a Liverpool scarf, I can see a Liverpool shirt. Yes. Unfortunately, I've got
Scouse accent. You can hear the Scouse accent as well.
I've got a replica Ole Gunnar Solskjaer shirt hung up there. It's currently not in view for certain reasons, but we won't get into those. What started that affinity towards Liverpool?
I wish I could tell you. I don't really know. I feel like that's the same for most people, right? I guess some people have a moment where they're like, yeah, that's my team. But for me, it was just, I don't know if it was a friend at school that recommended them or had like a lunchbox with Steve McManaman and Robbie Fowler on or what it was. But they were just the team that I began to watch far more regularly. Like, I wasn't born in Norfolk, so I never felt like I had that connection. My parents are from Norfolk. I was never forced to be a Norwich fan. I was just local to that area. So I wasn't forced to be a fan of any team. So it was a case of, well, I just find the team that I like. And it was around the era that sort of Michael Owen was becoming a bit of a superstar at the time. And he was sort of the player to get behind because the team weren't winning. So it's like, oh, we'll have to support something here. Then this young hope, Michael Owen. I think I was probably as tall as him as well at the time. So I could relate, even though I was 10 years younger. So yeah, again, there wasn't really a reason, but again, I feel like most people who support any football club that isn't local to them, over the course of X amount of years, you just grow to love that team for reasons other than localization. So yeah, I'm obviously through and through at this point. I've seen them be pretty dreadful under Roy Hodgson, and then more recently under Klopp, we can enjoy it. And yeah, I get people ask you a lot more when you're winning. Oh, why do you support Liverpool? When it was Hodgson, it was like, why do you support Liverpool? Now it's a little bit, the tone has changed quite a lot.
I remember could be on board with. The good old days of Roy Hodgson for me. Definitely. But
well, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is your Roy Hodgson, so
I mean, we're still getting Champions League finishes with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer.
I know, it's amazing what 500 million will do every year. Mad, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, unless you spend more than 20, I can't see you doing it again. So
that's all right. Our squad's already there, mate. We don't have to buy, 2 world-class players. We're already there.
And then bench one at the weekend. Jeez, man, it's bad. It's tough. It's tough right now. See, I supported Manchester United because my dad immigrated to the country when he was 6. Like, my dad's from Pakistan, and he didn't know any English, so he just wanted to fit in. And everyone was pretty much a Manchester United fan. I'm from Stoke-on-Trent, so it was like the sort of most local good team. So he did it to fit in, and then I guess I was cursed with it. In recent times. You were hooked in. 100%. But I mean, obviously the football talk is important when we go on to why people know who you are in the space that we occupy. Football Manager. When did that game hook you in?
So pre-Football Manager, it was Championship Manager 2001, 2002. I had a demo of 2000 that you got in a crisp packet box. I mean, Golden FM, who's another creator he's not around so much anymore, but he mentioned it a few years ago at an event. And I thought, I bought Frosties that week. That 1 week I was allowed Frosties just to get the demo that was stuck to the inside of the cereal box. And played it. You play it for 6 months, and then it would say to carry on buy the full game. I'm like, I'm 10. What do you mean buy the full game? I've not got a card. Like, what am I going to do? Back then it wasn't digital either, so you'd have to go to a shop. It was like, Mum, can we go to the shop and get this game? What's it about? Football data? Absolutely not. Let's go read a book. It's like, okay, never mind. But then I remember saving up for 3-4 months so when Championship Manager 102 came out, I had friends that played it, a few older friends that played it as well. Yeah. And that hooked me in. And I distinctly remember having a save where I was Liverpool, Roma, and Real Madrid manager at the same time. And it's like, no one does that as an 11-year-old or a 10-year-old. And I'd just be cheating through whatever. The Ronaldo, Zidane come to Liverpool. So they would get Roma, and I used to love being Roma and Madrid managers, but they'd just get decimated in this one save. Liverpool's team was immense. It was unbelievable. I was unbeatable. I remember getting to 2017 and thinking, oh man, I can't imagine what 2017 will be like. And then here we are making videos on the game, which is kind of crazy. Yeah.
5 years. Did 2017 live up to your expectations, or?
I'm trying to remember what I even did that year. I should have recreated it, really, shouldn't I? I should have gone to Liverpool and just brought all the Madrid and Roma players. That would have been great. That would have made Klopp's job a lot easier.
Yeah, I'm sure you had a few more Premier League titles in that save than in real life as well.
Yeah, I've no doubt. Every year, mate. Every year. And if it was going poorly, Madrid's budget would magically just come to my budget. So, again, going out, buying whoever I wanted. The best of times.
The good days. But so, I mean, it wasn't... I watched your, obviously, 100k subscriber video, which, congratulations. I intended to say that at the start of the show. Congratulations on that one. when obviously you never started doing the Football Manager sort of content, but when did that come to fruition? Was it just because it was the most accessible game that you had with you, or was it just the thing that you enjoyed to do the most?
One of the reasons I can't pretend really. One of the reasons was that I couldn't afford to be in part of the FIFA pack game. So I'd watch the FIFA guys and I think, well, these guys are popping off. Like, they all had coin sponsors. These guys were making 50 grand a month through coin sponsors. Like, it was unbelievable. And I remember thinking, as much as I love FIFA and I've played FIFA forever as well, I know there's this thing as if you like Football Manager, you can't possibly enjoy FIFA on any terms, right? It's an inferior game. But I played FIFA as much as I've played Football Manager over the years, I suspect. And so the football thing, it had to be football. Wherever it was, there had to be a niche of football. So I found Football Manager videos. I found Jack. There's a few other guys doing it at the same time, but Jack was definitely the one that was doing it the best. So it's like, right, if I'm going to ever do this, I have to watch him, see what he's doing, like be a part of his community. And so I watched Jack before I was friends with Jack. And then it was a case of becoming friends with Jack through having similar interests. We have some weird, like, we're born in the same hospital. We've got some very weird, we've got some very weird connections in that Jack was brought up in Lincolnshire, has family in Norfolk, and I'm the reverse of that. Both Liverpool fans. Like, there's quite a lot of links that are very strange. We know mutual people that we shouldn't know. Like, it just shouldn't be. Very strange. But yeah, watching him and seeing how he could foster a community out of just playing what is a glorified spreadsheet with a bit of colour on it, and it's being able to take that and build. So Jack was very good at telling his own stories through it, and I thought that's the angle I can use. Like, I knew I was going to be funny when I did it. I knew that comedy was going to be like my thing, and my maturity for comedy grew a lot in 6 years from starting YouTube to being 24.
Yeah,
and spending all that entire time just watching other YouTubers and lots of comedians. Like, influence-wise, there was just, I couldn't even give you one person. Like, that was just, if we're going to do this, we have to do it in a way that is different to how it's been done. And I said it in the video, in the 100K video, I wanted to drive the content forward that everyone was doing. No one was using face cams. No one was doing like little bits at the start. People were like almost ashamed to say subscribe and like the videos.
Yeah.
But I've been watching YouTube for 6 years. If you want to be successful, you have to galvanize your community a little bit. You have to make them feel part of something, and everyone gets more out of that. So I definitely went through that. I've just realised, by the way, I've got a bit of a sore throat. So if anyone's thinking, what's going on with his voice, it's just getting progressively worse throughout by the end of the interview. I'm just going to be like, yeah, it was great. I've had a really good weekend, and it's going to be terrible.
But no, like Triple H.
Yeah, it's going to be like, if it goes sort of Triple H, Jeremy Clarkson, dead. So it's quite a good segue. But no, so yeah, that was sort of my introduction into doing content on it. Again in the 100K video, it's like when I started in 2006, no one was doing gaming, and football was literally a taboo subject. You wouldn't talk about it. Everyone was a bit like, I don't mind saying this now, everyone was a bit of a nerd. Everyone enjoyed things that weren't sporty. All the sporty kids at school bullied people that did YouTube in 2006-7. That was I'd love to say that wasn't true. So when I came along as like this football guy, I kind of had to drop that until we went to one of these meetups, and we did it in a park, and there was a bunch of lads playing football, and I just spent the whole day playing football with these like lads that weren't even part of the meetup. And I think at that point they were like, oh, he's not one of us. He's not one of us. So I think that did my chances no help in trying to grow that first channel. But yeah, I definitely had a plan going around second time around.
I mean, because that was one of the more noticeable things that I found when I started watching your content. When I say your content, I mean the YouTube videos, because you'd always have that bit at the beginning, and it was awkward comedy. That's how I'd describe it. Like,
yeah, well, intentionally, right? I'm trying to make you feel like, is this funny? I'm like, but I can't figure out if this is funny.
Is he being serious? I mean, I feel a bit bad for him. like just like being open. That was the sort of thing, and like I haven't seen anyone do that to that extent on Football Manager content other than Zealand coming in, who's obviously he's done a different form of that Football Manager content. But I'm curious, because with the comedy that came in, were you always that sort of outgoing and comedic when you were younger, or was it sort of, I've got my camera on, this is my world, I'm gonna be exactly who I want to be, sort of thing?
I think it was one of my big regrets now is that I didn't do drama and stuff at school. I was so afraid. I was too I was just shy. I was the shy kid at school that when I say shy kid, like I wasn't a recluse. Like I would happily, I'd talk to anybody. I was one of those people. I'm sure people had this at school, and you might be one of these people as well. Is I was at school, I was just friends with everybody.
Yeah.
I didn't have I had like 4 or 5 friends that I was really good friends with. People like you'd have sleepovers with, or go out on weekends with. But generally, like I'd play football with 5 different groups of people. I'd be able to just like hang out on a lunchtime with any group of people. It'd never be an issue for me. But when it came to being like a presenter, that was something that was. I think most people that do that professionally, like on TV or whatever, they always say like when they do it, they're really nervous and they have to just overcome that element of it. And even doing it online, you just open to anonymous ridicule. So you have to have an element of thinking this is going to be good enough that people are going to enjoy it. So you have to build up the confidence is what I'm getting at. Like you can't just go into it thinking this is a bit cringy, this is a bit awkward. Like I knew it was. That was part of why I was doing it. I thought if I can make people think he's actually lost this now. Like there's one episode of Palmer. I just wrap myself up in like toilet roll, being a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, whatever that means. I don't even know what that means, but it's still something that people remember. Or doing characters, or wearing a wig occasionally, or just doing silly stuff. I knew that it was a huge thing that would be able to differentiate myself from Jack, who was doing like non-face cam, really serious and really successful like gameplay. Like he was winning a lot, and I thought I'm not going to be able to win a lot. So I've got to have a different USP, and my USP is going to be you're going to come, you're going to laugh, you're going to be entertained, and you're going to come back for that. And that was pretty crucial.
Because one thing that I've always wanted to ask you from a personal standpoint on that sort of note is, where do you come up with these characters? Like Ben Sports News, for example. Like when I first saw that, like you turn and look to the camera, I was like, does he think he's cool in that, or is he making us think thinks he's cool? Do you know what I mean? Like, how do you get from having that idea to then putting it on the screen?
I think you have to find ways to take the mick out of yourself.
Yeah.
And so having characters, so having G was my first character. Yeah. It was the Google Translate function. so everyone is watching thinking he's saying that to himself, but because it's someone else, it's a different voice. You're going, well, basically I had free reign to say what I wanted about anyone. Like it was like a superpower of, if I slag myself off, no one's going to think, I can't believe that person's had a go at him. It's me having a go at me. And Ben Sports News was the same. I'd be the bad guy in the Ben Sports News, like, bromance. People are going, Phil for Ben Sports News. It's like, it's me, you idiots. It's me, I'm doing it. It's me. I'm calling him an idiot. He's like, the production values he's not doing very well. I put those together. They're my Photoshop graphics. So it was very easy to use that as a tool to get people. But I think one thing that's really difficult in FM saves, and I see it now, is that getting people invested is bloody difficult.
Yeah.
Like to get someone to care about your Football Manager game. We've all been down the pub telling a friend about a Football Manager game, and you can just see him glaze over. Like, I honestly couldn't give a. I've had a tough day at work, and you're telling me about your League Two adventure. Like, I couldn't give a shit. Right? So that was an easier way. I think as well, it was easier for people to sell it to their friends. It was like, you should watch this guy. There was a reason I grew pretty quickly early on. It was like, I've never seen someone do Football Manager like this.
Yeah.
This is different. You won't be bored. Like, even if you're not into football, I had loads of people that said, I don't really watch the Football Manager, but the intros are great. I'm thinking, never mind. Then that's the 90% of the video you're not watching. But at least you care about Ben Sports News' adventures. So, and Ben Sports News partly was set up to have more Twitter followers than Proudy. It was like, if I can do that, that'll annoy him so much that he'll never live it down. And it's still got more now. So
take that.
Couldn't be happier.
Yeah, job mission complete. So I guess from that point, obviously you start the content, and you said you grew pretty quickly. How quick is pretty quickly? Because I assume it was a different time back then, but I see a lot of people doing those work the space style, Lelujo style, DoctorBenjy style videos of the sort of storytelling. Yeah. And personally, I think it's quite an oversaturated market now. I think you have the guys who are doing it and have been doing it for a while, who are still able to do it as content and grow with it. But I think from starting now, it's borderline impossible to garner that sort of interest because of the options that are there. How was that when you started and sort of taking the first steps of that journey?
There's a bit of that. There's a bit of wanting to And I knew I had to pave the way for myself. So I started doing streaming, and I know I could bring that stream audience to YouTube content, and I just had to hope they trust me. Yeah. So by the time I uploaded my first video, I had 1,000 subscribers. Oh, cool. Now, most YouTube creators don't start with that base, like unless they're a full-time streamer with millions of followers or thousands of followers that then do YouTube and they make a big song and dance of it. I remember saying, like, I think it was like August 26th or something, August 40th, I can't remember the exact date. I'm going to make my first video, and I'd go live that day, and at the end of the stream I'd go, right, let's all go watch my first video. So so I was building up that audience. I think there's two ways to look at it. Like you say, it's oversaturated now, which I think many people do believe, but I don't subscribe to that. In that, when I started, when I first watched Jack, I remember Jack hitting like 5,000 subscribers.
Yeah,
I'm thinking, wow. Z has got like 150k in a year or 2 years. There are so many more eyeballs now than there were then. So if you're starting now, like, don't get me wrong, there are established people that have done this for a long time and do it very well. And so anyone's goal, and so Tom FM and Clates and Omega Luke are 3 examples of people that are like growing in the scene, doing their own thing, being original, and trying to build and foster that community. That's the advice I gave to all of them. I said, one of my biggest bits of advice for YouTube content specifically, when you're starting, is don't give a fuck about anybody else. Yeah. Because if you're so worried about what other people are doing, if you constantly compare yourself to what other people are doing, you will never get better. Because you'll be so worried, and if you're watching Lelujo videos or Jack videos or my videos or Z videos, you're going to watch them and think, I can't do that, because we've been doing it for 6 years, 5 years. Z's been doing as much as Z's a terrible model to follow, like, because but he really is, because he spent 10 years working in broadcasting and learning a trade of how to do that and knowing every hidden bit behind it, and all he had to pick up, I say all he had to pick up, like it's part of the battle, is the YouTube side of things. Well, he got himself an editor. Right, he works on the marketing stuff himself. His ideas come from a team and a hub that create them with him. And there's a reason he's so successful, is that when it comes to them presenting it, there's no one better. So, like, we're talking about a guy that's got a team of 6 people working for him, and then you've got creators like me, Jack, like Loki's another example, Kev, that have done it for 4 or 5 years, and I've just learned every bit along the way. And our first videos are nowhere near as good as what we do now. They're nowhere near as polished, nowhere near as succinct. So people have to be prepared to take gambles early on, not be afraid of what might go wrong, and just like try and hit things that people are looking for. So being original is difficult in Football Manager, because you're all telling that, generally speaking, right? You're all telling that same story of, I started with nothing and I go to get everything. Yeah. And that's so finding a niche within that is difficult, but there are people out there. Z's most successful save right now is with a team in Portugal. Like, most people don't do saves in Portugal. Me, Kev, Jack, we know that England's our core. We know that people are going to want to watch English saves, and if we ever deviate from that, we don't go very far, because we know what people want. So, in my opinion, if you're newly starting now, don't do English. Do something niche that you really care about, and build that up. Have a real core audience that care about that thing, and just focus on them. People are so often trying to chase an audience they don't have. Yeah. Like, try and create stuff for the audience you do have that you enjoy making, and that is a combo that will just grow. Like, it might take a year, 2 years, 3 years, but it will happen if you stick with it. And that's arguably the most important point. If you stick with it, a lot of people don't.
Yeah, and I think we'll get onto that a little bit later, because there are a lot of people in that sort of streaming or YouTube stratosphere who do watch this sort of thing, which will be key. I guess from that, then we obviously have you on the sort of YouTube, I guess, content creation side, and you said you started streaming first, because I thought you were initially a YouTube creator from just what I'd seen.
Yeah, well, doing FM, I'd watched a lot of stream before, back in sort of 2009. It's not a bit I included in the video, actually. Yeah. Which maybe I should have done, but getting footage of it was going to be impossible. I did it. There was something called Blog TV, and it was where you would just you'd log on and you just talk to a group of people. The same way it was just chatting before just chatting on Twitch. Yeah. But it was like 12 years ago, and not many people were doing it. I think Philip DeFranco did it. I don't know if people are familiar with Philip DeFranco. He was one of the more popular people on it, and he'd get like 2,000 viewers doing it live at the time. I think he had a few 100,000 on YouTube and things like this. and I would get about 130, which even back then was like kind of crazy. But it was a case of the community back then was so close knit that everyone knew each other. So if one person went live, everyone would be in there. Yep. It was that type of thing. So it was easy to build momentum that way. YouTube was always sort of the secret love. It was like, I'm doing streaming to see if I can be, it's to see if people give a shit, and if they give a shit, we'll do YouTube again. Yeah. And I was lucky that they did.
Okay, well, because that's quite weird from where sort of my impression of how the FM sphere has progressed, because from sort of my own memory, and I came into it a little bit late, obviously. If I was watching you when that Lad Bible article came out, it was only a couple years back, if that. Yeah. The impression is that, at least before the draft competitions and the FM Streamer Showdown came out, there wasn't much sort of collaboration between creators. I'm not sure about communication, but I'm gonna assume not as much. There's at least now communication between them. How do you go from having that community where sort of everyone knows everyone on Blog TV to then having the opposite on Twitch? And how much of an influence did everyone knowing everyone on Blog TV sort of make you want that collaboration and community on Twitch?
Yeah, when I first turned up on FM Twitch, there was definitely a group of like 20 people, and Jack was probably on sort of the edge of that group of people. And when I turned up, being me, about half of them thought, "Who's this dickhead?" Like half of them couldn't stand me. Half of them thought, "Oh, who's this guy riding off the back of Jack? Like, who's hasn't had to try very hard. Jack's raiding him or hosting him or whatever. Like before raiding and hosting was a thing, like during streams. But that was part of my strategy. Jack's stopping streaming. Well, guess who's going to be live? Jack's going to stream at 5 o'clock. Guess who's live at 1 o'clock? Like I was always working around Jack. He was a powerhouse of the scene. He was the biggest guy in the scene at that point. Like it was impossible not to try and work off that. And I see people do it to me and Z and Kev and Jack now, and they should. It's the smartest thing you can do. If you can be around live on Twitch when we're not, people are still looking for streams. Or if you go live 10 minutes before you know we're going to end, people might go, "It's a bit cheeky that, shouldn't really be doing that." That's just how it works. There's a reason the BBC. There's a reason BBC put like good TV shows after their not so good TV shows, or not so good TV shows, or new shows after their most popular ones. ITV, Sky, or do all the same stuff. Like that's just part of the game. Like you're trying to get people to follow on and stay on the platform, and I was trying to keep people in Football Manager. And my attitude, I don't really mind saying this now. It doesn't apply so much anymore. I'm sure I still think it occasionally. Is that I remember thinking, if someone's going to come to watch my stream, I want to make sure that when I'm live next, they want to come back to my stream. Even if I'm live at the same time as this other person, I hope they come back and watch me. Yeah. Because I found it really fun having a lot more people. I would feed off that energy, as I'm sure every streamer does. When you've got more people there, chatting away, typing away. That's why raids give people such an endorphin hit. It's like, oh my god, everyone's here. What's going on? Oh, it's chaos. Everyone's fine. My computer's broken. Everything's frozen. People love that. So, and I was like trying to create that every day. And it was the consistency of being there every day. And I think that's something that's difficult for a lot of people. Is that if you've got a full-time job, if you're working part-time, full-time, it's difficult to be there every day. It's difficult to be part of people's routine, because that's how a lot of people grow early on in this space, is by being a part of the people that watch his routine. So that's why I'm a fan of content. I was the same. I was watching people every day. I know Jack was uploading at 4 o'clock every day. I was refreshing his channel at 5:02. Like, I wonder if it's early today. Never early. It was always 4 o'clock.
He always. But it
would always be the same every day. And so it goes back to what I said with YouTube, right? Is that you want to make time for the people that are there, and focus on those people and build that community and try and grow it by improving yourself and being better, and that comes with time. And I think that's sometimes the commodity people have the least of, but it's so important.
I think that, like, we seem to say it every episode. Football Manager on Twitch is just chatting with something else on in the background.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
When, like, I know I'm guilty of it. If there's no one in the chat, I'm just slumped back in my chair going, X passed it to Y shoots. If everyone's in the chat, I like, oh shit, I've just won 4-0 because I'm just so focused on the chat and that sort of thing. And it is important to sort of cultivate that. But I mean, obviously you had your ventures before. How did you did you have that sort of audience cultivated straight away? Because I know, from people I know that when things, like I'll give you the example. I started towards the end cycle of FM 2020, right? Towards that end FM cycle, a lot of guys who were in the space were taking breaks, and I think at the time, yourself included, there wasn't a lot going on the FM Twitch sort of the scene. People still wanted to watch their FM Twitch, so I got a bit of a boost. As soon as FM 21 came out, my viewers halved, and like mentally I was like, what am I doing wrong? And I ended up not streaming for a little while after, because I was like just mentally fucked from it. Did you have, I guess, it adds well to, the mental aspects of streaming, because I can guarantee, or any content creation, because I can guarantee you've experienced the whole shebang just by how long you've been in the space for. And how did you overcome it in those early stages when you didn't know what was what?
Yeah, my break was because me and Elle had a son. So if there's ever a reason to have a content break, that was a pretty good one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think so. The most recent example I had was during lockdown. I would have about 1,500 viewers every lunchtime from 1 till 5-ish, and then I had a bit of a break and a bit of a down period for a couple of months. I had other stuff sort of going on life-wise, and then everyone started going back to work. So I logged on and it was like, it's 750 viewers, which is still mass. Don't get me wrong. I'm grateful enough to understand it's loads, but as you said, when you lose half your viewers, it's like, where did everybody go?
Am I
yeah, it was so stupid, because during that time when I sort of between 1,200 and 1,500 every day, I'd always go, this won't last forever. I'm acutely aware this won't last forever, but I'm going to enjoy it while it's happening. And I had to just keep reminding myself of that. It's like, you knew this was going to happen. Don't you start getting annoyed at yourself. Like, you knew this would happen eventually.
Yeah.
And it sort of just went back to a bit of like a standard viewership that I had before the lockdown started. In the early days, I definitely had ideas. Like, again, it's people just forget because they weren't around. Is that I definitely had ideas that flopped. I've definitely had a stream save that lasted 2 days. Like, sometimes you just do stuff and you think this isn't working. I think the most important thing to do, if you think something's not working, stop quickly. I see that people do this all the time. People go, no, I'm doing this save at the moment, but in a couple of months I'm going to do this save I can't wait for. I'm thinking, well, do that one now then, because you could care way more about that than you do the one you're doing. And people just get caught up on this idea that there must be an end to this. Well, yeah, sometimes there does. But so I did a Norwich stream recently that I put on YouTube.
Yeah. And
I knew about halfway through, I thought, this is going to be impossible. I have to the crescendo has to come at the end of season 1 rather than the end of season 5 when I'm in the Premier League. I've not got enough time, and having an end that you can build to still gives people that feeling of, that was quite fun to watch. Even if it didn't last as long. So you basically have to just change the ending. Like, everyone starts an FM save thinking, this is where I want to be at the end of it. There's nothing to say you can't check. Like, you're in charge of it. No one's going to go, actually, you said you're in the Champions League, so if you're not going to be here for that, I'm never going to come back again. It's like, well, actually, no, circumstances change. I'm more into this. As a result, you'll be more into this. Trust me, in 2 weeks when we start the new thing. So again, you have to just be prepared to admit when it's not going well. The amount of times someone goes, can you take it on my channel? I think, okay, then, not a problem. You go on, they've done 150 episodes of a series, and they go, don't watch the first 100, they're terrible. I'm thinking, you should have stopped at 10 then. Like, why did you do 90 more if you knew they weren't very good? That happens all the time. So, learning to adapt and improve. And sometimes you might learn something halfway through a series. Well, then, guess what? When you start a new season, bring it in. Bring it into the new season and go, this season we're going to try this little technique that I'm doing, whether that be editing, or you put your cameras positioned, maybe you've got new audio, right? Have a reason to bring it in. Maybe the chairman funded a new microphone. Guess what? That's part of your storyline all of a sudden. And you could be thanking him at the start of every episode for a week. Like, it's just little things like that. It doesn't have to be overcomplicated. Yeah. People think you've got to do this like high production stuff. Bullshit. Everyone started with nothing. And it was just a case of, how did they grow it? You got to find ways to be creative. And the one thing, I'm sure we'll get onto like content creation stuff a little later, but and this is the one thing no one wants to say, and I wouldn't tweet it probably because I don't like Twitter as a forum for this. Some people just shouldn't do this. It sounds brutal. Like I wouldn't be a very good actual doctor So I wouldn't think to myself, I'm going to go and be a doctor. There's loads of jobs I look at in the world. I think that is not me. I can't do that because the barrier to entry is so easy, right? As long as you've got a connection that works, the PC that can run Football Manager, you're probably going to be able to stream in 2021. Like your connection's probably going to be there. There's a point where I see people that have done it for 4 years and they're like, this is going to be the year. I think it's never been the year. Like there's something to say like, I'm going to stick with it.
Yeah.
This is going to be the time. But it's the people that don't improve or that come to you and say, how do I improve this? And I go, do all these things. They've done all the things and they're like, I did all the things you said and it's still not working. At that point, it's like, then maybe you're the problem. Like it sounds, but no one wants to say that because it's so brutal. You're literally going at that person's personality. You're saying you're the problem. It's just not the right thing for you. It's like, would you go on stage and do stand-up? Probably not. Don't be a stand-up comedian then. And I'm sure there's loads of people in the stand-up world, right, that have the exact same situation. I'm sure there are thousands of actors that are in that sort of thing. When you're being judged for who you are and what you're capable of in front of other people, so demoralizing to be told, this just ain't for you, mate. But sometimes that's the thing that will help you move on to go and do the thing that you're so much better at. So I wouldn't want anyone to listen to this and think, he just thinks everyone's shit other than him, because it's not that. There are loads of people that are new and creating, and Z is a great example of someone that for years was doing it and doing it terribly, and then it just suddenly went, right, I got it. But it was only a couple of years. He didn't spend 5 years being like sort of struggling to do it well. There was a moment where he thought, right, going into a new game, we're going to do this content. No one's doing this type of content. I'm going to team up with this company or this group. We're going to do stuff together. And there's always a plan. There's always a bigger picture plan. And I don't think enough people necessarily have that. They don't think. So whether it's equipment or it's ideas or it's collaboration now, because that's become like the new thing, you've got to have a goal. You've got to have a goal and also having goals that are achievable. Like you don't have to say I want 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year. I'm on 70. Bollocks. What happened there then? Like you should say by the end of this month, I'd love to get 10 more people that give a shit. Yeah. Okay, we got those 10 more people next. Like it's so achievable. 10 people. Like you could go up in the street and start giving out business cards if you want. But that'll do the job.
It's funny.
You've just got to be. Go on, I'll let you go.
I was going to say it's funny you said 70 because we're on 70 subscribers right now on the Ways of Possession channel.
So the goal for the end of the year, 300. 400.
However many.
Well, I'm going to say it now. By the end of this year, 300 minimum, easy.
All right then.
By the end of next year, 1,000.
All right.
Why not?
Go on,
right? Why not?
I'll keep you posted on how it goes.
No, I'll be watching. I'll be one of them.
I mean, I guess that I assume you're talking from that standpoint as somebody who wants to be a full-time content creator.
Of course. If you're doing it for fun, ignore me.
Yeah, literally.
Who cares? When I, for example, if I go out and play football tonight or tomorrow, and then I see Graham Souness going, DoctorBenjy really shit. He's had a shocker at the park today. It's like, mate, I don't want to be a professional footballer back. I don't care. Like, do me a favour. So yeah, if you're doing it for fun and you are, but that's the thing, innit? There's people that do it for fun, and there's people that say they do it for fun, but actually care more than anybody else. Yeah. So as long as you know which category you're in, and some people that do it for fun will very often grow quicker than people that are doing it with like this massive strategy. Sure, have a long-term plan, but have a long-term plan and keep it fun.
Yeah. Like
there's definitely a middle ground to be found there.
100%, I agree. I guess, you're talking from the perspective of somebody who is on top of the FM content creation. I guess, I don't know what the right word for it is. We'll just say landscape, right? And I guess with that, there becomes elements of maybe elements of jealousy, maybe, envious, people being envious of that position. And I don't know where the sort of rumblings come from the place they're from. But, when you're talking about people who are in my position in the FM community, we always talk about the big guys. I'm not saying that I do. I'm saying you have that vibe, and you see people in that space saying, "Oh, those guys, they're a cult," sort of thing. You say, you must get it. You know what I mean? When you put the Streamer Showdown lineup out, and everyone's like, "Same guys again. You never give anyone opportunities." Blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
I don't feel like you have much of an opportunity to kind of have your say when that sort of thing happens, because you've got a few people shouting at sort of one dude, and if the one dude says anything back, anyone's just going to say, "I told you he was a prick," sort of thing. So I'm curious about what your standpoint is on there, because I assume everybody wants a piece of you. Like, I wanted a piece of you to get you onto this. You have nothing to gain from going on this right now.
Mentally, I find it fun.
Yeah,
and also I get to do this bit, which you've just given me the opportunity to. Like, I didn't know if you were going to say this or not, but there's also the element of, yes, people are jealous. Like, I get to play Football Manager for a living. Like, okay, of course that annoys the shit out of people.
I'm jealous, but not like that.
For anyone that hasn't, like, I guess I would say this, for anyone that hasn't watched my 100,000 subscriber video, there was a YouTuber at 16 and at 18 and at 21 that had no idea what he was doing and was bitter about the people around him. And as the story says, 15 years later, 10 years later, that's not how the story ended how I wanted it to end. Not how I thought it would end. Like, but what I had to do was take a step back for a few years, mature, realize that actually the reason these guys are successful is because they're frankly just better than me at it. Like, and that was such a hard pill to swallow. I remember sitting in a call with some people and going, why did it never happen for me? And they went, well, why do you think? And I went, I wasn't good enough. And they just didn't say anything. And I thought, you didn't have to say anything. Like, I figured it out. Right, okay. So then the conversation became, well, what makes these people good at this? Like, what makes people care? And so then I set about some of it wasn't even conscious. I was just picking it up by watching other people, watching keynote speeches from people that were doing. I think in my 100K video, I show like a 4-second clip of Bernie Burns, who was one of the founders of Rooster Teeth, that started a series called Red vs. Blue, which is like a Halo animated series. And he did a keynote speech over the fact that they wanted to make a film, and they had a huge community online. And they basically said, we want to do this film. If you want to see this film, fund us. And 15,000 people raised $2 million.
Yeah.
And it's the power of being able to say to those people, back us and we'll do something you'll love. And that's kind of what I had to build up with my own content. Now, when it comes to how people view that, you can view it in two different ways. Like, you can say they don't deserve it, or you can say I'm better than them. And both of those things might be true, but you're the person that's got to prove it.
Yeah.
Like, so when I started, it was like I saw people with a few thousand subscribers, and I thought, man, I can do this way better than they do it. Which some people will go, how arrogant is that? But if I don't believe in myself, why should anybody watch me?
Yeah.
So there has to be a degree of confidence, arrogance, if you want. It doesn't, but as long as it doesn't come across horrendously. When I first started doing FM stuff, I definitely got a reputation as someone that was a bit of a know-it-all, because I was mid-20s. Again, I'd spent all this time learning, so I was like, I've already figured all this out. You just don't know it yet, guys. You're going to see. Like, this is, and so I came with this approach of, this is how we're going to do it. And at the time, there was no one full time. No. But I was like, this is how we're going to do it, guys. I'm going to put all this time and effort in. You're all going to do this together. And everyone else was like, I've got work on Monday. Like, can we just relax, mate? Like, honestly, you're a bit much. You really are a bit much. But it came from a good place, but it definitely came across as he thinks he knows everything. And the worst bit was I was growing at the same time. So it was like, oh God, he thinks he knows everything. And because people are watching, he thinks it justifies what he's saying. So, but for me, it was like, well, this is justifying what I'm saying. So it was very difficult. It was very difficult to stay calm during that period.
Yeah.
But in the last few years, I definitely mellowed out. And there was a meetup at Sports Interactive a few years ago. There's a couple of bloggers there, a few of the guys from the 5 Star podcast, and about 8 or so YouTubers. And YouTubers had met before, but it was like there was about 20 of us in the room, and that collective suddenly realized, oh, we're all just people. Like, no one's better than anybody else. No one thinks they're better than anybody else. When he tweets, it's quite obvious actually he's just joking. But they're looking at me thinking, oh, he's a dick in real life as well. Okay, so it's not just like a thing that he does online to try and seem popular. He also talks absolute waffle in real life. So I'm a bit of an icebreaker. In that if there's a bit of awkward tension in the room, I'll try and make everybody else feel less awkward by maybe acting a bit of a clown at some point, maybe just like ribbing someone, so everyone else feels like, oh, actually, this is just a normal thing to do. When you meet people you've never met before, it can be really awkward. And I still do that with showdowns now. When we invite new people in, it's a case of, let's make sure they feel comfortable. The one thing I'm so conscious, and this is what, like you mentioned, it's always the same guys. Why do we never have new people? I guess there's two answers. I'll give you the real answer, or I'll give you the answer that people want to hear. We don't have new people because we've just not had time to fit everybody in. We'd love to have everybody involved. Bullshit. That's not true. The real answer is I want the best people. And by best, people are going to go, well, what does that mean? That means people that I think are the best, which it's not a democracy. Now, sure, at the end of every showdown, happened last night, I say to the guys, there's 20 of us in the call, I go, who should we be looking at? Who should we be looking out for? And we've been doing that for 13 showdowns. Yeah. Ask for every single one. We get in a call. So everyone that you've seen come in has probably been recommended at some point by 3 or 4 people who have gone, keep an eye on this person. And right now, we're probably keeping an eye on 10 people or 5 people that we think in a couple of showdowns, if they keep going, then we're going to have them involved at some point. We're going to have them on a lowdown, on a breakdown, in a showdown. Just depends what fits at the time. It doesn't mean you should quit. It doesn't mean you'll never be selected. It doesn't mean you'll never be involved. But some of us have been streaming for 5 years. Some of the guys that are annoyed they're not being invited have been streaming for 10 minutes. It's like, just figure out what sort of streamer you are. Figure out where you'd fit in. Figure out if you think. I'll say this: if you think you'd be good on the showdown, message me, because a lot of the people that get involved are the ones that come to me and say, "What can I do to help? How can I be involved?" Yeah. And I think if you care about this as much as I do, that's tick number 1. You tick the first box, easy, and then it comes a case of, well, what do you add to a showdown? So the McKinn stuff is a great example recently, and Si's equally a good one. He had this reputation of being a bit of a bottle job, but he's also a lovely guy. His quality on his stream is really good. Like, the way he interacts with his own community is great. It's Clates-esque. There's no other. I wish I could give you another way. But when Clates started, and they're both teachers as well, so it was obviously part of their their set plan for the day, in between lunch and break. They obviously knew that they'd be doing this, but they both came at it with the right attitude. It was like, if it happens, great. If it doesn't, I'm going to have the most fun ever. Yeah. So it's really easy to bring that sort of person in. With Si, I sat on the playoffs panel with him, and I thought, you could easily be on the show. Like, the other guys were good as well. It doesn't mean that I thought they weren't good and he was just great. Like, he was to me, he was standout. I thought you could be on a showdown panel, and I said it to both of them afterwards. I said, if we didn't know this was your first showdown, no one would have been able to tell. No one would have gone, bloody hell, who's this guy they've got in? This is a bit ropey, isn't it? Goodness me. And occasionally we've had people that hasn't quite clicked, hasn't quite gelled, but with these 2 boys, it was perfect. They fit straight in.
We'll take full credit for that.
but I hope people who enter your tournaments and the playoffs and the Super League tournaments and what have you, and I'm not going to say that I think that the showdown is what everyone should be aiming for. Yeah. But if that's what streamers do want to aim for, then great. Like, I've got no issue with that. We run ourselves differently. Me and Matt, during the week of the showdown, me and Matt work full time on it. It looks more than we would like any other job. The work Matt puts in particular, Matt is a one-man show when it comes to the lowdown. Every graphic, every bit of audio, every video clip, everything you see. I'll say not everything, maybe 90%, 95% of things you see is Matt. Like, we are so lucky. Like, you guys, the playoffs of the Super League, you don't have a Matt. Like, that's if you did, but that's what you should go look for. If you want to like improve what you guys are doing and take it to another level and make it more serious, you need someone that can write the theme tune, sing the theme tune, and then rewrite it for another week, and then do it again on his night off. Because that's what I get with Matt now. As a partnership, we work really well because I'm very much like front of house. I make sure that I'm cracking the whip. So Matt basically needs something doing. I make sure it gets done. Yeah. We need to come up with a lineup, and we need to invite people, whether that be Spencer Owen or Manny or FNG or McKinn's. Right, I'm the person that approaches them and goes, "Come and be a part of this. Let's see where you fit in. Do you fancy it?" Sometimes I approach people and they go, "I can't do it this week," or "I don't really fancy it this week," or "I don't think I'm ready yet." Like, a few people are aware of that. Yeah. We really care about it to the point where we had KFC sponsor it, which is mental. Draft mode is shit, isn't it?
Yeah,
good lord, horrible. Like, it's not a very good mode right now. I think hopefully it improves to 22, but we've managed to take that and take FM, which is not a good online game, as you will know more than most at this point, and have KFC, the bloody chicken guys, sponsor 5 showdowns. Like, that's insane.
Mad. And I know. Like, I know for a fact Matt was in on Friday for us. People said you were in, but I didn't catch your name in the viewers. Like, we had issues at the beginning of that show.
Yeah,
and we just had to roll with it. And like, I know, like, Z on the right of me, he will get frustrated quite quick. We had Coach Ajita in, because usually it's Stick Piano who hosts, and I'm one of the commentators.
Yeah.
We had Jita in because Stick was away on work business. And, when everything's sinking, like, you just have to think on your feet. Like, I got gifted 2 years ago with Baby Mask. One of those fucking, what they call latex ones.
Right.
We had technical issues. I whipped it on. It's a thing now. And I think, having the ability to do that is important. And I saw the issues. I just assumed the Streamer Showdown wouldn't have those problems because it's a Streamer Showdown. It's the big one.
Yeah.
And there were issues on the weekend, and it was quite refreshing to sort of see that. But before we get on to sort of the other draft comms, we've spoke to Zealand about it. We spoke to Fox in the Box about it. I feel like we need to complete the Trinity and speak to you about it.
I know they try and take credit for it. It's crazy, isn't it? Mad that. I listen to both of them. It's like, where are you boys? What do you mean? No, they're right. It started off as a conversation. I'll let you ask your question, so to give it context.
How did it start? That's all I was going to ask.
So I saw it basically. At all these FM meetups we've been to, we talk about, like, I often ask, like, Miles in person, or I ask the guys at SI, and I say, what do we do with online then? Let's make something work with online. Like, believe me, this is where it's going. Like, this is the future of Football Manager. I know people will get all precious over the main game, and they're worried that if you focus on one thing, that this other thing becomes worse. It's like, well, that depends what you do. Like, there's smart ways to do it. So we've been talking about online stuff for years, and years and years. Me and Jack have spent, been up late talking about it for a long time, arguing about it, falling out over it for years. And I just saw, like, a Twitter thread between, I think Pine was in it, Curty was in it, Foxy was in it, and I think him and Z had already chatted about it a little bit. And then it became a case of, well, let's talk about it, because I'm someone that the whole Twitter back and forth, I've done that lots before in my life, and I'm not a fan. Like, this is my preferred way of talking to anybody on Discord. And being able to just say what I think, so there's no question marks about how I've said it or what I'm saying. Everyone, like, we can have total clarity. Some people are very forthcoming in that. There are others that are like, no way, I'm not going to be embarrassed by you for an hour, which is what they think will happen. They think I'm going to attack them and, like, just go for them for an hour. It's like, no, I just want to be able to put my point across without being misconstrued.
Yeah, exactly.
So we had a conversation about it. It was like, well, this is a format we could do. Foxy come up with a logo for us. Z, just take part, mate. You can offer very little other than that. You're basically technically inept. So, good luck with the taking part bit. So Z did that, and I was like, right, I'll organise it. I'll make sure we've got all the boys involved that we need to have involved. After the first one, it went really well. There was no lowdown. I think a lot of it just went through, like, my Twitter announcing stuff, because it was like, well, I've got a pretty good following on Twitter. I guess this will be the place to hub it to begin with. And it went well, but I remember sitting there afterwards thinking, man, this could be so much bigger. Like, we could do there's so many things we could do, and how are we going to do them? And then I get talking to Matt about it. I'm like, how would you change things? What would you do? And Dan was hosting lowdowns at that point, like, early on. Yeah. So we're talking to Dan. It's like, well, how can we improve this bit? So we added a lowdown. We added a place where everyone could watch everything. It's really difficult to follow a tournament across 8 streams. In any game, never mind Football Manager, like, it can be really difficult, especially with how much information is being given on each stream. It's really difficult to convey that. Yeah. So, clear up the lowdown, based it around Soccer Saturday. It was like, this is a good model. Let's make it more interesting than Soccer Saturday and less xenophobic. So that'd be a good start. And then allegedly xenophobic. Do you need to say allegedly with these boys anymore? I don't know. Shout out to Matt Letitia for sending me a voice cameo once. Good lad, appreciate that, mate. Very good. And then it was the case of format. How do we change the format? How do we change how it looks? And everything in mind that we changed was what's it like for a viewer? Yeah. If you're the competitors, as they will all know, and McKinn's will now know, you are the least important part of this, right? So you have fun, you try and win the tournament, but you do not matter to me, other than making sure that your viewers and the people watching that aren't your viewers have a bloody good weekend watching it. Yeah. And have the most fun possible. So that tends to be how we run it from beginning to end. It started with how can we have fun doing this thing and collaborating? It ends every sort of Monday, Tuesday before the draft of how can we make sure that the viewers enjoy it as an absolute must, and then everything else can fall into place, right? Then the stories will write themselves, so that we don't have to do that much work.
It's such a big spectacle, but then obviously there was that want for more things like that in the community. but there wasn't anyone really doing it at the time. Now, if you ask the FM playoffs, they were around first. If you ask me, we were around first. It was just our first season was shit. Absolutely shit. It was only season 2 where we started to really get good, basically, which was around, I think, December, January time this year. What was your first impression when you saw these guys popping around? Because I know Z was like, who the fuck do you think you are, sort of thing. And I think Fox appreciated it because, because of his influence on the Streamer Showdown. But as, the director of that, how'd you feel about us ripping you off?
It was part of the plan. If I'm being totally honest, I said we've been talking about doing this for 5 years. I've just coughed, so my voice is back. Everybody, we're good to go. We've talked about it for 5 years. The whole plan was that basically the whole goal within this is, can we make Sports Interactive do something?
Yeah.
Can we make them look at this and go, there's a desire for this, there's a want for this? I bet I've got no idea what the numbers are, but I bet if you go look at the draft numbers for this year, they are 5 times more than what they were last year.
100%.
Or maybe more than that, maybe slightly less than that. I don't know, but I bet the amount of usage in it is massively increased. Yeah. That's just me and Jack playing each other pre-showdown, trying to get the best of Kev. Like, it's unbelievable. So when I see other tournaments crop up, one of my first thoughts was, you should have all come to me and said, how are you doing it? Because there were loads of things that I watched you all do, and I thought, 10 minutes, you wouldn't have had that problem. You just got to ask me. Like, there's no one who's been playing draft mode or looked at the technical issues of draft mode this year or the last 2 years.
Was Matt saying, get everyone on FM touch you sort of thing during our issues?
So it was. Yeah, that was one of the fixes that we found years ago. It's like, just if it's going poorly, just everyone move across. Have it like so as a prerequisite. So there are loads of things with the showdown that we have as fail safes if this goes wrong. Yeah. So as a point of consciousness, everyone has to have touchdown loaded, ready to go. Yeah. If the main game isn't working, we have an alternate plan. If one person can't get in, we've got someone ready to come in case it all falls through. So we had it with Dupe once. We just swapped Dupe and Dan around. Dan was on the lowdown, Dupe was in the showdown. Dupe just couldn't connect. It was like, right, we've given this half an hour. We can't stop. Like, we have to just switch it around. And Matt did the graphics works behind the scenes. The boys on the lowdown kept it going. We're sort of sat there going, what's this connection issue? It should just work. Why doesn't it just work? So there's always a plan. If there's divergence, right, we've got a plan for that. We know how to, we hopefully know how to avoid it. If possible, we still had a little bit this weekend. Disconnections are going to happen occasionally. There's a plan for everything. Everyone knows before they start their first game, if this happens, this happens.
Yeah.
So there's no surprises. No one's going, so what happens now then? No one. People ultimately know Ben's going to decide, and that's the final. And that's what's decided.
Yeah.
Like, there has to be. So I think every tournament needs basically a tournament director to go, this is what happens. If you don't like it, I don't care. Like, it's not about you at this point. This is about how it is. Again, it comes back to, this is what it's like for a viewing experience. I've watched esports events in the past where there's a 3-hour delay with no one saying anything. I remember watching Call of Duty events, UMG Niagara. It was 2013. Trying to watch Uptick Gaming do something for once with Nate Shot and the boys. Nothing was happening for 3 hours. The stream just went down. Everyone's going, what? This is on Twitch. You got 20,000 people watching. What's going on? So, but that is something from 7 years ago from me watching esports that I'm like, never going to happen to us. We're never going to have that situation. I think our longest break between games ever was 25 minutes, and it was when we had to reload to get results that were as a result of divergence. We had to re-get the results that we had previously.
Yeah.
So I've gone away from your question a little bit. Your question was, what did I think of these tournaments? I thought great. I thought this is going to encourage more people to take part. It's going to encourage more people to figure out the organisation side of things. Because if we ever put on a major event, or we need more people, like I got this goal of one day doing a tournament live in person with 32 people. Like, I'm going to be looking at these guys thinking, right, they run tournaments. They've got a vague idea of what goes on. If I need someone to run Group A specifically, well, guess what? I'm going to come to the likes of you guys and Mozza and whoever else and say, come and be a part of our big thing we're doing this time around. Like, you've got a vague understanding of what the fuck is going on to begin with. That's more than Z. Like, who I should say I absolutely love. But like, but Z's like, Z's different because Z's so good at what he does. Yeah. But you need loads of people that are organising. So right now we've got Matt that hosts. We've got 3 guys that do graphics, 4 guys that do editing. We've got Millie behind the scenes who's doing like basically a producer role as well as hosting the game lobby. We have people test it. We have like 3 or 4 people test it before we even start a weekend. We have so many things going on behind the scenes to make sure that when it comes out of the weekend, there are going to be problems, but you don't notice. Yeah. And you only notice if you're in a position like yourself where you do tournaments. Like hopefully most viewers are like, oh, maybe there'll be a small graphic error. But if that's the biggest problem we have all weekend, then my word, it's been a pretty good weekend, hasn't it?
Knowing these servers, mate, that's the best thing you can hope for is a small graphical error. But then I guess McKinn's I don't know if you know, but when we first started the first wasted possession drafts in season 1, it was shit. We just did an individual event every week, and only then did we run the way we're running now, with multiple events leading to a final.
It wasn't shit, it was new.
It was exactly comparative to what we are now. It was
even then it was new.
Yeah,
you got it. Yeah,
100%. But it was initially called McKinn's X Wasted Possession Draft. McKinn's at the time was probably on about 5 to 8 viewers, and was in on the first one and has been in every single one afterwards. And Sai Maggio was there as well, because Sai Maggio and Stick Piano get on quite well. When we were first doing it, we needed people in, and this is the issue that we had compared to the playoffs. Mozza was already established in the community at the time, so he had links of saying, do you want to do this? We were like, we don't know anyone. If we ask I don't know, at the time, Fox in the Box, Sweet Left Foot to come on, they probably won't even get the tweet because it'll go through the other tweets that they're getting. Because, I think at the time, the most followers was Stick Piano on Twitch with 200, 250. So we literally had to think, we need to just start at the bottom and work our way up. And, Sam Maggio and McKinn's were part of that. They were relatively new to the scene. And to see them, and particularly McKinn's, winning the fucking thing from that point was mad. And now I know a lot of people said, big shock the new guys won. For me, I didn't find it much of a shock, because McKinn's is playing at least 2 or 3 times a season for us. He's playing for the playoffs. He's probably played a lot more drafts than a lot of people who were in the Streamer Showdown, because of the other drafts that are coming up. Do you think that will indicate more people who are consistently in the Streamer Showdown looking to think, I need to get some draft experience and see what's knocking about? Basically, will you come on?
Also, it's funny, right? Because you said, what was my first impressions of these tournaments when they started?
Yeah.
I'd sit in debriefs afterwards. And I remember seeing all the tweets like, oh, you never have new people in, you never invite this person, this person, this person. There's always these people. And I watched all these tournaments get set up. And I remember thinking, there's 4 tournaments that exist right now. There's the Showdown. And I'm looking at all these other tournaments, and there's not a single person from the Showdown in any of them. I said to the boys, anyone been invited? Everyone went, no one's come near us. I thought, weird that, innit? No one wants to be, everyone thinks that we're elitist, no one wants us involved. But when it comes to us, no one reached out. I don't know if people thought that we would all say no.
I did. That was where my head would have been at.
I've said it publicly and privately that again during these debriefs are like a thing of legend at this point. Like we have these conversations where I basically sit there and lecture everyone for an hour about things we did well and didn't do well, but then I ask everyone's opinion on everything. I'm like, I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. Basically, no one's confused about what the plan is. We all have the same ideas. And I said, look, all these other tournaments springing up. If you get invited, do it. Yeah. Like if you think that it's good for you, and if you think you can add to what they're doing by being a part of it, then go and do it. So like, I'm never going to say that they're not under contract. If they're under contract, it'd be different. And I said this weekend, and I'll quote exactly what I said. I said, chances of me or Matt being in any of these other tournaments, almost nil. Like me and Matt, the Streamer Showdown is a company registered with Company's House. Yeah, it would be odd if we're suddenly like freelancing ourselves across other companies. There's a lot of secrets we have within the Showdown about how it's done and how we create things and what we make of it. Like, so it's not rigged or anything. But my point is, like, there are lots of things that is like intellectual property at this point. Yeah, that whether it be graphics or again technical ways we do things, that it's going to be difficult for us to sit by and watch tournaments and not say, shall we do this? Can we do this? So I don't want to take away from that. In terms of people participating, everyone else can kind of do what they want. Like I went on the playoffs and did some like punditry the other day.
Yeah.
But it was completely unprepared, completely unscripted, and I did a couple of hours just like chatting away with them.
Yeah.
And that was great. I know Diz very well. I got to know Sai. I spoke to Scooter a little bit, so I knew some of those boys, and I had to go at Ian Sterling all the time as well. That was great as well. So I had a real good time doing it, and I think for a few people that made them think, oh, okay, there's not this massive divide that we all think there is. Like, he's prepared to cut. And that was partially why I did it as well. It was like, I don't want people to think that we sit in this ivory tower where we can't be criticised and everything we do is perfect. Bollocks. There's loads of mistakes we've made. Yeah. And we'll make some in the future. It's about how you prepare and react to them. And I think we do that really well. I think there's very rarely do we come into criticism for doing something like really like doing anything really wrong. Like sometimes we make decisions people don't agree with, but man, find me a tournament or find me a competition or a esports sort of tournament that exists where that doesn't happen. Everyone's going to have a differing opinion at times. Again, it just as long as you can justify it, it doesn't really matter.
See, because I know you said, did you think we'd say no? Part of it was that. Part of it for me as well was, is it too much of a risk for any of those guys to come on one of ours?
Do you know what? Season 1, it probably was.
Not in terms of the product itself, although that was a risk for season 1, but also in terms of, say, I'm Lelujo, I'm this hot shit in the Streamer Showdown. If I come and do the playoffs, basic possession, the Super League, and somebody with, sub 500 followers absolutely dicks me, I get absolutely slapped about, and I'm out. Would that sort of in your head or in somebody else's head devalue the Streamer Showdown in that way, where people are saying, because it is the Premier one, but he's just got absolutely thrashed here, so is it the Premier one? Do you know what I mean? Is that risk not something that you would consider, or people in that sphere would?
I'll put it this way, mate. Tom FM won a showdown, so any idea that the showdown is the Premier anything, the fact that Tom can win them, ultimately, as long as it's entertaining, I don't care who wins.
Yeah.
So when McKinns comes in with his reputation of being a bit of a bottle job, and like you say, he won it. That wasn't the highlight. He knocked Kev out. I couldn't believe it. I was like, this is the best thing that could have happened to me. I couldn't have been. I'm celebrating. I'm playing second yellow card, and I'm fuming about my game, and I'm celebrating McKinns' victory. I'm like, this is so good. This is just what I wanted. Bring a new guy in to beat Kev. I couldn't write that better. To get rid of him as well. Oh god, put him in the mud. Well and truly, it was great. No, I don't worry about that at all. Like, I think FM, between me and you, I think, like, don't tell everyone else, I think FM online is really quite random. So I think as much as there are like decisions you can make to maybe have it go your way, there's no guarantees. Like there's a lot of AI influence. So I can't worry about that. Which is why we have so many. The fact that Kev's 1-6 is mental. Yeah. Like that should never happen. No. Like, I think he's won 3 shootouts in finals and he's won them all. Like he's played 3 shootouts in finals, he's won them all. Like that's pretty difficult to do. He drafts really well, and that's the skill element of it. It's like you've got to give yourself a chance to win it. Yeah. Some people draft, and I think, Luke, you've done it again, mate. There's not a chance here. Well, I don't know why you keep drafting like this, but yeah, Jack does the same thing. Jack drafts a terrible defense every time. Then he's like, "Oh, my defenders keep making errors." It's like that's because you keep buying £300 million worth of striking talent and forgetting that Joel Matip and I don't know whoever it is at the back is not quite good enough. But,
Jack O'Connor.
But so yeah, in terms of the integrity of the competition, I don't think results matter that much, really. No.
Nah, fair enough. Well, I mean. There's a lot that we can talk about, on just that whole FM sort of draft scene. And I think as we go forward, it seems like you're more than willing to sort of help, give advice. So just what sort of advice would you give to every draft product? But I know you've seen our draft product. I don't know how much of it you've seen. What sort of things immediately come to mind that you think, do this?
I think, we talked about it before with YouTube, right? Short-term goals.
Yeah.
So the showdown we didn't have the lowdown. The first lowdown does not look like the lowdown now.
Yeah.
It looks almost you wouldn't know it's the same tournament.
Yeah.
To a degree, like it's so different. It's so differently done. So It's about adding to it every time. Add little bits. Like, if people take stuff from us, as long as you're not calling it the FM Streamer Showdown and you copy our exact format and have Lelujo win it 6 times, we're not going to go, can you bloody believe this? But our attitude is, and I'll be quite upfront about it, I don't care what you do, it's not going to be as good. Like, and that's how I feel about it. Again, we have people that work pretty much full time on it. We're able to pay people to be a part of it due to KFC sponsoring it for a long time. Like, we can have prize money, we can do things that other people can't do. But we kind of knew that going in. Like, I knew when I started my level of influence and what I built over the course of 5 or 6 years, I can use all of that. I can use my connections, like knowing James Alcott, knowing Manny, knowing Spencer from different eras and different times.
Yeah.
Or when new people come into the scene, right? Approaching someone like Kurt or Pieface that plays some FM, I can just DM them and be like, "Oh, boys, do you want to be a part of this at some point?" And if either they can or their schedules don't quite match up or anything. And equally, I feel comfortable enough to go to anyone who's smaller and say, like, there's been a few people I've messaged and said, like, we don't want you in right now, but you're definitely someone that in the future, as long as you keep doing this, like, just to give them a little bit of a, don't quit. Like, don't think that we're just ignoring you.
Yeah.
Just keep going with it. Like, again, it's not going to happen straight away. So when it comes to, so what I'm getting at is time. Again, it comes back down to time every single time. Figure out what your short-term goals are and how you make those achievable. So my first thing for all the other tournaments that go on, create a lowdown that is better, because all of the viewing experiences we have at the moment are not that they have to be on the lowdowns level, they're just not that good. Like, so that's one thing everyone can improve, whether that be production or whether that be just like general graphic stuff. If it means you have to pay someone a tenner on Fiverr to create like a set of graphics for you to use, then fucking do it, because it'll make what you're doing so much better. If there are graphics guys within the scene, approach them. Say, we've got this idea, we know what we want it to look like, but we don't quite know how to do it. Visualize it for us. So for example, the intro we made for the showdown, Proudy edited it together. He's a creator that's done streaming and stuff for many years. Me and Matt sat with a call with him for 3 days, and we had the first one of the intro. We're like, nah, can it? Delete the whole thing. Let's start again. Went through the first bit, got so far. It was like, yeah, but what if we could do this? Like, let's scrap that again. Go to the next bit. We spent probably 25 hours on the intro to the Streamer Showdown. Last 90 seconds. You see it 3 times a week. Like, but we knew that we could take that to brands and we could go, look at this. That looks as good as anything you're going to find on Twitch. Yeah. Like, so that was our big thing. And that came from us giving Proudy a couple £100 to spend the time to like just put it together. And again, not that every tournament has to be the showdown. You have to be individual enough for people to be able to tell the differences. I think that's one thing actually you guys have done really well. Like, I don't feel like I'm watching the same thing every time I'm watching you guys or the playoffs or the Super League. They are all defined in their own different ways. I think you do all have niches. I think nailing in on those niches is really important. Like, format wise, you've all kind of got it right. I think, especially with you guys, because you have so many more people involved. Oh, that's tough. That's tough to do. That's it's not. But I'll openly say now, I wouldn't do it. Like, I personally wouldn't do it because I know how difficult it is to get. It comes back to that idea of, I need people to care about this as much as I do. Yeah. And if I don't know how many people do you have in like a one sort of season of a tournament
right now? So the format is, we'll have 2 groups of 8 at the beginning, Challenger Leagues. They're generally people who we haven't really had in before and more smaller, because our niche predominantly is just representing FM.
Yeah. And even entry level. It's just good. It's just really good entry level. You give people a really good experience.
We've had people in there who have only just hit affiliate, basically. As long as it's like you look good in terms of not attractive, but like, you know, you're not. That's
important.
You're not streaming up. I know. Well, us too.
That's why we get Sweet Left Foot. It's only in there because of that reason. There's no other reason to have him.
He is a good-looking guy. I'll give him that. But like, as long as you're not 3 frames a second, that sort of thing, we'll have them in there. And like this season, I'll get onto it actually because it helps better. We have auto invites from the previous season, so those who finish top of their groups get an auto. Those in the semis get an auto. We have the partnership with the Super League and the playoffs, where their last winner gets an invite. So and it works vice versa. So we have that sort of like where we're in it together sort of thing. We're the community sort of thing going on. So we'll have the 2 groups of 8. Top 2 will go into the group stages, which is Champions League format. Top 2 qualify. Then they play in the final. Separate drafts, separate stipulations every time. They'll only find out half an hour before we start, just to make it more interesting.
Yeah, I've seen that's good.
It's a 7-week draft, and like the Challenger League, you got that draft time going on, and then we play as well. You know, I'm doing a 9 till 5. I'll finish at 5:30. By 6:15, I need to be ready. I'm hosting as well this time round, and then I'm not done until midnight.
Yeah,
doing that every week.
Feeling.
Fucking hell, man.
Yeah, I was going to say, you need more people. But again, it's like, so what's the total number of competitors on that?
We then have 4 invites, and we try and hit a niche. So generally, guys that haven't been on, I think by the time this video's out, you'll know. So we've got Amiga Luke, which is big for us getting him in. Yeah. We've got RDF Tactics, which I'm quite happy that we kind of were the first draft group to get him.
Yeah.
We got Con Riddle, because we think he's got great potential, and a very, very small streamer called Brackle. I shouldn't say very, very small. A relatively new streamer called Brackle.
No.
Yeah. Averages.
That's your new word. New's your new favorite word.
Yeah, exactly. After we replaced it earlier on, yeah. So we have those guys in. So we have about 7 invites. Those for the Challenger League. We probably, off the top of my head, we probably fit around about 26, 28.
I was going to say about 30ish, right? Yeah. You get to around 30. So the point I was making originally was, you need all of them to be caring about it as much, because it takes 2 people, it takes 1 person to mess you about. Yeah. And then God,
schedule them together. Someone's like, oh, I forgot it's my child's birthday on the date that I said I could do. Can I swap? That happens every time, and again,
do you have a Discord server that sets it up? We're talking. This is like non-podcast chat now. Do you have a Discord server for it?
We have a Discord server. We have a Google sheet. Essentially, people will sign up, put their availability dates, ranking from most preferred, no conflicts, to avoid at all cost if I have to, sort of thing. And then from that, we'll let people know if they're in or out from emails. We can kind of gauge what the groups are going to be, because we have to balance them as well. Like, Brackle I don't think he's got much drafting experience. If we put him in a group with Goofy George, who's won our competition, Sam Maggio and McKinns, he's fucked, most likely.
No, do it. No, you gotta do it. That's an underdog story waiting to happen, mate. Honestly, you get him through. I'm team Brackle at this point. Get him in there.
Let's go, Brackle. But so yeah, we'll then communicate with them and set up separate chats, and then we run the event through our Discord. People use our voice channels, drop into the commentary channel when we want to interview them between games.
Yeah. So to give you an idea, I was just looking. The reason I asked is because I was just looking at the Showdown Discord channel. We have 28 either voice or text channels.
Oh yeah.
I think people would go, what? But and all of them are useful. Like we have so many different things for so many different things that I think when McKinsey and Sai came in, they were like, oh shit, they've got a real plan here. There's so much going on. So me and Matt invite people, like, we're going to blow their mind here. This is going to be great. So they come in, and then Matt gives people debriefs or pre-tournament briefs of what it is, and he sends them 1,000 words, and they go, oh, I thought I was just turn my camera on. It's like, no, you're working for the week.
When it was announced that McKinn's was on, I was like, oh, like, that's so good, because we talk like in like Discord DMs all the time, and me and McKinn's, me and Sam Maggio do quite a lot as well, which was quite nice, because the 2 guys I really get on with, to have them in. Yeah. But
I've got them under NDA now, so you're going for. I said they're on contracts. Those 2 boys are locked in.
Well, I mean, they've both already signed up for our tournament before then, so we'll give them a flash about. But
I'd take 10% of everything they earn now, though. So it's rough for them. It's rough.
Oh yeah, the Benjy Empire. But like he said, like, oh yeah, Nerdphonic asked me what camera I had, and it was a webcam. So we drove up to my house and took pictures. And I was like, what?
Yeah, Matt did a 4.5 hour round trip. to go to Mackinder's house.
I was like, what? Like, that was the first inkling I had at the level. Like, in terms of the group, it probably would be a good idea to give people roles depending on their groups and they can access those groups. But we usually just have a Discord. We just set up a separate group chat every time for it, which probably is a long-winded way around. But we're new. That's how we're wording it.
That's good. It's a lot more. It's like kinder to everybody.
It's because we have the most people in, I think, out of all the draft competitions in a season, and like it's not just a one-time event. Our seasons last for 7 weeks every Friday, and I'm 23. I live in London. Friday nights we're doing the FM draft until 12:30 and 11:30.
Yeah,
like. That's quite a sacrifice when you're that young and you've just had a lockdown where you haven't been able to go out, which is why I'm sort of on the line of like people can maybe critique, because we had people complaining that we weren't representing the community this season when they didn't.
Funny that, isn't it? Funny how that happens.
And I'm like, we've got 30 fuckers in this. Like, we had 60 applicants because we just do applicants every time. It's like. We what?
I joked. I can't think of who I said that to. It might be Moz or Keg or someone.
Yeah.
Or it was just me and Matt talking. I mean, all these tournaments popped up. I thought, okay, I'll give you a few months. You'll see. Everyone will be saying the exact same shit that we get. Saying that you don't invite people. It's like I've been very clear. To be eligible to be part of the showdown, you got to be streaming Football Manager. Like at least a little bit. You have to be streaming Football Manager. If you're not streaming, guess what? You don't get an invite. But that doesn't mean like. Oh, I'm streaming, so I'm definitely going to be invited. That's like we're still very particular on who we invite, and it's invite only for a reason. Like we are very narrative driven. We want there to be this Clates versus Kev rivalry. So guess what? They're going to be in a feud together for a long period of time if they're available. If Z's available, you're damn right Z's going to be in because everyone wants to beat him, and he's won one before. He's chatter vicious. Like he's a really good person to have in there. But equally, we've had Z on lowdowns before. I've been on lowdowns before. Like we're happy to rotate it and mix it around and change things now and again. But equally, you do have to have that like level of consistency with what we're doing, and especially when we've got sponsors involved. Like they want some of the bigger guys to be involved. There is this desire to see them battle as well, and for the audiences of those people, seeing Kev versus Lelujo is like sorry, that's the same person. Seeing Z versus Lelujo or me versus Jack, it's a big deal for the community at times. Like they want to see who's going to come out on top. They want to see me talk shit to every single one of them. Like because you don't see it in the solo videos that we're doing. Like this collaborative project that we have. Has been so good for just like the friendship of everybody. I think Kev is someone that has talked about it publicly. Like Kev gets a lot of shit from a lot of quarters. Like there's for some reason I don't really know why. No one's come to me and told me why. It just seems to be I've never met him or spoke to him, but I'm going to conclude he's like this because of Twitter or whatever. And like I think we all know Lelujo, absolute dickhead, but Kevin Chapman. Like lovely guy, and once you can sort of break down those barriers sometimes, but you never see them in like a hostile environment. Like YouTube's a very safe space for all of us as creators. So when I bring someone in, I'm like, let's see if you can handle it. Yeah. Because I'm just talking nonsense the whole time. Like I did my exit interview yesterday.
Oh man,
as we record. I'm watching Tom be lovely. Kev's been all humble about it. Clayton's been nice, but I'm thinking. No, not going to do that. I'm going to come in. I'm going to go for all of them, and I'm going to make sure that the next time we play each other, there's a little bit of bite to all these games because I'm just not having it. I'm watching Matt. I'm watching the VOD back. Matt's just like, I think I let this go, but do I let this go? I've got a responsibility.
I was watching, and then I think it was Curtis said, "Do we let people swear?" And Matt was like,
"Yeah."
No.
And I'm sort of like, we're not really supposed to, but if there's going to be a pipe bomb, I'm going to be the one to drop it.
It was great storytelling. But again, I think before I was on Wasted Possession and before we started that, I was thinking, oh yeah, there's nowhere near enough rotation in the showdown, blah, blah, blah. But after doing it and people still sort of having that gripe with us, because they didn't get in. Like, our first thing is you're streaming Football Manager. If you're not streaming Football Manager, no. Then we kind of look at how much they've been streaming. If someone's only done like 3 hours this month, probably not. And then beyond that, it's variety, because you want to rep the community. So we want to get like the females in the community. We want to get the minorities in the community in terms of like people of color as well. We want to get the...
yeah, man.
In terms of follower size, like we go for that spread. Like this season, Keg in the Challenger League, Stinger in the Challenger League on Friday. Like, I don't know. I feel like if we were not concerned about the community, there's no way Con Riddle or Brackle would have made it to an auto invite to the groups. So I think people just like to bitch and complain when it doesn't go their way. And I fully level with you on that now.
But something we get a lot is you never have smaller streamers. It's like, well, tell me what a smaller streamer is. What? Not you specifically. I'm like, these people, how many views you got to have? 3, 4, 10, 15, 20, 50? Like, I'm a smaller streamer on Twitch. If you want to go from that definition, like, what are we going to go for? At what point are you going to be happy when someone with no viewers is in? Like, come on, we've got to be realistic. One thing we're super certain of, like, I'm very, very conscious of, and this is something I would say. So if people are going to start up in production values and they're going to have more eyes on it because things are improving and more viewers are watching, is my primary concern, as much as I want the viewers to have a good time, is I want the people taking part to have a good time. I'm not going to hang anybody out to dry in a showdown before they're ready, because there are situations where we're on the front page of Twitch and there are 3,000 or 4,000 people watching, or there are situations where Lelujo is in a elimination game, or Z's an elimination game, or I am, and there's 2,000 people watching, 1,500 people watching, or you're playing against one of us, and anonymous Twitch chats can be pretty brutal. And if it looks like you don't fit in, or you look at a place because you're not experienced enough to handle that amount of people, and a real good indicator for me is when someone gets raided, and I watch them get raided and they freeze up, and they spend half an hour reading out follows, and I think, that ain't gonna work. Like, you can't be until you realise that your stream is more important than, like, the admin of your stream. Then you're always going to find it difficult. So I'm really conscious of not putting people in positions where they feel like, I never want to do this again, or I got abuse for nothing, because it won't be anything other than maybe you sound a little bit different, or your audio quality is not quite as good, or your camera's not quite as good, and you have 10 people come to your stream and call you shit. And how do you, but because that's what people will do. Like, people are trying to rile people up online generally. We try and create a super safe space for people to compete. One of my sort of secret hidden rules is, I'm the worst thing that's going to happen to you, so don't worry about it, because I don't really mean it. Like, so as long as you know that you can handle that, then I think we're all good. I'd like to think they think the same. I am the nicest person ever in the run-up, but then as soon as I'm playing against you, like, it changed. Like, I flip, whether that's Kev or McKinns or anyone in between. Like, there has to be that level of, this is a performance, and this is everything else. This is like this sort of conversation. I'm not spending half the time just going, and another thing, that guitar, but you can't even fucking play it, can you? You clown. Like, oh, either way, cool, I'll call you out there. I mean, don't come to the showdown with that guitar. You'll be in trouble. I shouldn't have pointed it out.
I mean, that implies I'm coming on the showdown, so I will take that and run with it.
You know what? 2024 is not that far away, so you just
go.
You keep tight. You keep tight.
Well, I mean,
but go on.
I know sort of what you mean by that, because even from the conversation that I had with Fox, like, he was saying, you know, like, this community needs to be calm down when it comes to that, because he didn't sound like he was doing a good job of dealing with people during the showdown or on YouTube giving him shit. And he's a guy who's experienced in that area. You know, you throw someone who has never dealt with that before. How do you react? And it's a risk you can't risk taking. And I guess there's also, especially, obviously, I'm not going to mention names or anything, but the incident, I'm sure you know what I'm referring to.
No, we should say it's loony. I hate this. Honestly, I know this is going out publicly, but I hate all these people that just tweet about it, like, vaguely, and go, because who's that solving the problem for? Like, Looney said, so for those who don't know, Looney said some stuff a few years ago, 7 years ago and 3 years ago on Twitter, that was disgusting. And we took a decision as a showdown. We found out 3 days before we were supposed to be in it. We'd already announced him. We had a real big, I talked about this on my stream at length, I don't know if you saw it.
No.
But we had a real big decision to make of, do we kick him out now and explain why, and create a shitstorm of potentially 10,000 people giving him grief for a weekend? And I concluded, probably not worth it, right? We took the decision of, he'll be a part of this one. He won't be a part of anything I do in the future. In terms of the showdown, he's basically got a year to go on good behaviour, or and then if he doesn't do anything after that, because we can't ask him to apologize. Like in this situation, you can't ask someone to apologise, even if you think their apology is shit, right? You can't ask for someone to apologise and then just not accept the apology and say it's fake and it doesn't mean anything and it's not a real apology. Like it doesn't work like that. Otherwise, why did you want him to apologise in the first place? For who?
Yeah.
Like just for the sake of it? It doesn't work like that. You've got to give the person a chance to prove that they've changed and they're different. Now, everyone's talking about it and no one's talking about it. I know about it, didn't see it, only heard it through secondhand information. But if he's talking shit on one of his streams and saying people bullied him during that situation, it's bollocks. Like, if he wants to call out people that are involved in the showdown, then and say that he was bullied out of the showdown, it's not true. You said some deplorable things on social media. Some people reacted publicly about that. Some people reacted privately about it. And you were called out for it. Now, if you then want to try and spin that as if you're the good guy in the community that is, fighting the good fight, you want to be like the anti-hero of everyone else who's involved, you want to separate yourself from that, that's very much your prerogative. But because you've now gone out and spoken about it in not very nice terms with not a lot of evidence, and then deleted the stream because you knew what you said would be received poorly, then that's not good. So basically, if it was a year on good behaviour, guess what? That just extended, because I can't have people that are going to put, especially if we're sponsored or branded, I can't put ourselves in that position. We already took a risk by saying to him, look, we're not going to kick you out of this one, even though we know exactly what you said, because I don't want there to be a situation where you're basically, your life's threatened for 3 days.
Yeah.
Like, which is what would have happened. So we basically took the decision of, you could be in this one, everyone's going to be civil, but then we can't be associated with that. We've got KFC's name on all our sponsor boards. Yeah. Like it can't happen. And then every other sponsor can go, we don't want to have that guy yet. We don't want to be put in that position. No. But equally, I definitely believe in, there has to be a point of redemption. Again, as I said before, if you're going to apologise, we have to accept the apology, whether you believe it or not. You have to just sort of be conscious of it, and then allow that person to improve and better themselves. And I had many private conversations with Looney about this. All the things I'm saying on this podcast, I don't want people to go, oh, bloody hell, he's throwing him right under the bus here. These are conversations I had with Looney. And they were conversations I had very frankly with him and said, look, we can't do this because of these reasons. I don't feel like he was bullied. I feel like people tried to make him accountable. Some people went about it the wrong way. These fake accounts, these anonymous accounts that turned up, being the bastion for the community. It's like, what, create an anonymous account? Do me a favour, mate.
Yeah.
Who the hell do you think you are? These people doing it publicly, and he spoke to many people privately that had issues with it, and I think some people felt satisfied with that. This isn't me throwing him under the bus.
No,
again. He apologised for something he said 3 or 4 years ago and 7 years ago. I'd like to think that doesn't represent him now as a person. Again, I've not seen his live stream, so I can't say what he said. People said some things to me. Frankly, unless I've seen him say it, I'm not going to accuse him of saying it. Like, again, it's very much up to him to come out and either defend it or explain it or ultimately ignore it if he thinks that's the best thing to do. Like, there's not a handbook on this sort of thing.
Yeah, no.
And as a community, we have to choose how we react to it in the best way. Now, if you think being proactive and speaking up against it is one of those ways, that's great. But if you do it in sort of like a vague undertone, then you're not really solving the problem. It just looks like virtue signaling, and I don't particularly like the phrase virtue signaling. Usually that's something that's coming from a good place, but it's just being misconstrued or done poorly.
Yeah.
I find often speaking to him publicly or privately about it, like holding people accountable, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the way we did that as a showdown to sort of round it off was saying, like, we can't be associated with someone that's got and had those viewpoints until we've got enough period of time to think that you're not going to ever do that again. So again, I suspect everyone watching this when they were 14, 15, 13, whatever, said some stupid shit. Yeah. If it was on Twitter, they wouldn't be in showdowns. Do you know what I mean? Like, and there'll be different levels. Like, I was someone. I don't think there's any shame in saying it. I was part of that teenage group that would use the word "gay" as an insult, or basically use the word "gay" to mean crap. Like,
yeah.
And then I grew up. I became an adult. I met people that were gay. I saw the influence it had. I saw the negative impact it would have on them day to day. And guess what? I've not used the word in 16 years.
Yeah.
Like, it's not come out of my mouth since I was a year 10, fitting in with other year 10s. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a completely different person. I wouldn't want to be judged on what I did back then, but the proof is in my actions. You won't find me saying anything. You'll never. I would. Not that I want to challenge anybody, but you won't find me saying anything racist, homophobic, xenophobic anywhere. Like, sure, unless it's aimed at Lelujo, then I can't make any promises. But
fuck it.
And so when people come into so again, to sort of bring it back to the draft stuff that we're talking about, we vet everyone that comes in now. As a result of that incident, we make sure we go through their Twitter and we think, right,
how did you become aware of it then? Because I would have assumed that, especially with KFC as a sponsor.
Someone messaged me privately. It's not for me to say who it was. Someone messaged me privately and said, "Have you seen these tweets?" I said, "No. I'll talk to Looney about it." And then I spoke to Matt about it, and we made the decision that we made. Might have been the wrong decision. I'm very much open enough to say that. I said before, like, there's some things we might have made mistakes on. Maybe we should have kicked him out. Maybe we should have caused a huge ruckus before a showdown. I didn't think that was the right way to approach it.
There's two things that are prominent to me from that period. One of them was people, they're basically saying, why not give Looney that ultimatum and say, either you say you have to drop out because of personal reasons, or we kick you out and tell people why, because that's not a bluff you want. You know, you don't want to, if that is a bluff, you're not going to call it. And the other one was, at the time, there seemed to be a bit of a lack of, you know, I'm thinking about the word, like, there was a lot of people, you know, putting on sort of the social medias, like, you know, standing against it. And there seemed to be, at the time, a lack of reaction and action from the Streamer Showdown itself and a number of the people who were involved. And I don't believe you are, but there were people like, what are their opinions on it then? Do they actually agree? Blah, blah, blah. Because, you know, silence means someone else can speak up. I want to know what the thought process behind that sort of...
Of course, it's a great question. And I will preface this with saying that I did an hour-long stream on this, and I thought about it, but I'm quite happy to... Not everyone would have seen it, so it's not... I don't blame you for asking the question. Essentially, we made the decision, as I do with every Streamer Showdown decision, that the decision to keep Looney in was my decision. It was something we discussed for an hour to 2 hours on the Sunday night. I said... if they're in the room, I would have done that. I went, this is your last chance. And I would have pointed at everyone and said, if I see anything from anybody that is even remotely close to what he said, you are out. There's no second chance now. If anything from now gets said, you can damn right well hold you accountable in the moment. I can't be a proponent of someone's mental health. I can't be someone that speaks up about it. I can't be someone that is very vocal about it and then know that the reaction to me removing Looney for what he said in that moment would have caused, and God, some people will go, he deserved it. You know, you don't get to say that sort of thing and get away with it. If he'd done it 2 weeks before, then yes, of course we would have removed him immediately. It was 3 years ago, it was unpleasant, and it was 7 years ago, and it was unpleasant. And up until the point where he'd been a content creator, many people had recommended him, many people had no idea. Like, so, and again, we were naive in not vetting him at that point. When it came to it happening, and everyone else being quiet about it, that was a direct instruction from me. Because I didn't want anybody held accountable in the Showdown accounts to be told, like, this is all your fault. You've allowed this to happen. I made the decision. No one had to talk about it other than me. Like, and I didn't want people to be in the position when they felt like they had to defend a decision that I'd made. Yeah. So I said, and not a single person of the 30 to 40 people we have in the Discord agreed with him, what he'd said. Some people thought we should have kicked him out there and there. Some people thought they agreed with how I handled it. And I think collectively, based upon the conversations we had, again, at length, we kind of, as a collective, agreed that we did the right thing. Okay. And as someone that has to make the decision, and with the amount of peers that I had by my side, and of course me and Matt are business partners at the end of the day, we had to make that choice. It was something we spoke to KFC about at the same time. It was like, this is a thing that's happening. I want you to be acutely aware. I don't want this to blow up in your face. It's been handled as far as we're concerned. It's been dealt with post-Showdown. We don't need to make a huge deal out of it. Of course, we could have all come out, but this wouldn't have solved the problem. In my opinion, it wouldn't solve the problem. Yeah. If everyone tweets collectively, we are all against discrimination of any kind. It's like, I'd like to give us a bit of credit as a community. Of course we fucking are. Like, I hate this idea that we constantly have to go around saying we are not this. Like, when you load the game on Football Manager, it comes up, kick racism out of football. It's been the same for 20 years. I'd like to think that is a motto that is held within the community. For bloody hell. If it's not, then my God, we have some problems.
Yeah.
So, of course, if we see situations that are arising in the moment on Twitter, hold those people accountable, call those people out. But bringing stuff up from years ago and making a massive fuss out of it, there are, of course, some things. I should clarify that. There are, of course, some things that if it said some, like, the worst of the worst,
yeah,
then yes, of course he'd have been gone in that moment. They were stupid remarks that were basically the remarks of a child. So, and that's how we looked at it. Again, rightly or wrongly, we'll be judged on that. It was a conversation we had at length. It's a conversation I've had a few times now with people, and I'm pleased you asked, because I think if there are people that are still unsure and think we handled it poorly, that's absolutely fine. I'm more than happy to talk to any of those people.
Yeah.
My mind could be changed on it. Like, I'm not someone that is so narrow-minded to think that I'm the almighty and what I say goes. But there is a matter of protecting each person in the situation, whether it be new people that we're going to invite in, whether it be people that are currently in that obviously don't agree with his views. And it was a cold showdown for Looney, that showdown. He knew people weren't happy. Yeah. There were certain people that he communicated with that were clearly there to play their match against him and then not talk to him for the rest of the tournament. And Looney had to own that. So it's interesting. I'm sure some people will view this as, oh, this creates a massive drama. You know, why are you talking about it? Why are you doing it without Looney being there to defend himself? For me, it was something that was done, and it has been done. And the recent situation that occurred, people should be more proactive in talking to him about it if they have issues. Again, if you want to call him out, that's fine. If you want to create these vague scenarios where everyone has to, where the comments are just, or you don't allow people to comment, or the comments are just, who's this about? What's happened? Like, you're just part of the drama. You can't say I hate drama and then basically be someone that is a massive proponent of it. Like, you can't have it both ways.
No, 100%. I appreciate the openness, because especially like with it being sort of that product, especially when there's business sponsorships involved, like that couldn't have been an easy front to deal with. I appreciate the openness on that one, but I think we've squeezed the draft sponge for as much as we can. I wanna ask about you, really.
Blimey, okay.
I think this come at a good time, because you just hit that 100k, and I guess it's a case of what next? What direction do you go as a content creator and as an individual who lives the same way that anybody else does? Because obviously you've got a young family and that sort of thing. And you said 100k was the one that you wanted, and you got it. But when that sort of thing happens, you do have that sort of like Tyson Fury in your head. What happens when you reach the mountain top, metaphoric? Yeah. So what do you have in the bank?
So fortunately unfortunately for me, I had that moment a couple of years ago. So I mentioned it very, very vaguely in the video, but me and Ellie would sit at college in 2008, 2009 and talk about like our dream holiday. And it was both New York. I was a massive fan of like Sex and the City and Friends and what have you. Yeah. And New York to me has always been like that place. Like you see it on TV, you're like, man, that is like a different world. It's like a film. I've seen so many films where New York is obviously the reference point, and I just wanted to be there. And in 2018, we went and just had like the best time. I proposed in Central Park. It was like, it couldn't have been more perfect. Yeah. But I came away, and people that have been to New York in sort of their mid-20s have said this to me before, and I've had this moment of like, well, now what? Like, this was the goal. This was the dream. You see all these people in New York that are just like on the grind 24/7. They are in it. Like, and there's this feeling about that city that I've never had anywhere else. Like, it is alive to the touch almost. It's a bizarre place to be, where half the people have headphones in on their phone talking to someone else who is probably just doing the same thing in another part of New York, and everyone else is just wearing a suit without anything other than a wallet and a phone. And then you have a incredible amount of like, and this is something that is very different from what I've just said, the amount of people that are homeless. Yeah. And but they're all under the same city, and they all sort of feel together in that place. And there's like such contrast. I think 1 in 25 people or something in New York is a millionaire. Yeah. Like, just walking around. It's like, this is unbelievable. Like, the amount of wealth and scale of the place, but also like that American dream, and not even American dream, sort of that world dream of New York City that we had. And I came away from that and came home to my little village in Norfolk and was like, I'll never feel like that again. And we were there for a week, and even that felt like I didn't complete it. I didn't complete the job of being there. And a lot of my goals were like earn enough money to take Ellie there and to have like this dream holiday. So the next year, I'd basically spent all the winter. So we went in the September, and I spent all winter and sort of a bit of the spring just like listening to Billy Joel and watching films about New York and just feeling like so in love with the place, but also like I missed it.
Yeah.
And she came in one night and she just went, just book another trip. Knowing she'd get a free trip to New York. She's like, just book another trip because you're not over this and you'll never be over it. Like, you won't move on with your life until you go again. I was like, okay. So we went back again for another week. And on the final day, we sat in Central Park for about 5 hours, just watching like the people of New York play softball. Like, there's probably about, I don't know, 300-400 people just playing in like different areas of the park. And we just sat there, and I sort of looked around and I thought, yeah, there we go. Okay, done. Now I know what it's like to live here. Because it wasn't a case of like being on a holiday there. I wanted to know what it was like to be a New Yorker for a week. And we sort of did that a little bit more. It was a bit more raw. Saw the Rangers play a couple of times, and I've been addicted to hockey ever since, basically.
Yeah.
Although we had our first game in 5 months yesterday and lost 4-0. So welcome back, New York. It was just like, oh, Jesus. So when I hit, the 100K thing was like a goal I'd always had, but the idea of being in like my dream place, just my motivation just disappeared. I had some problems with like YouTube series that failed or corrupted or had problems. I lost a hard drive and stuff like that, and that was all sort of linked. But ultimately, it was like I had to get over that dream and then move on from it. And then so now everything since then. Like, YouTube's important and content's important, but as you said, like my little boy just turned 1. Like, and we're about to move into a house. We've signed for a house. We've just basically my office exists, and all the other bits of the house are just like in bits at the moment. So until we can move this room, like, I'm still very much here. So in terms of what's next for me, like, I want to be able to continue to provide a life for my family through making stupid Football Manager content. Like, I don't know, it's silly, isn't it? Really. I think showdown wise, we want to make it bigger and better. We want to take it live. I'd love to tour it around the country. I'd love to take it to New York. That'd be cool one day. If Arthur Ashe Stadium want us, we're available. There's so much I want to do. YouTube content wise, like 100K is cool, but 500,000's cool. Like, why not one day? I think I know Z wants 1 million subscribers. Man, if I could sponge off half of that, then feel free, Z. I mean, let's do it, mate. Like, let's just see. I think when I first started, 20K seemed impossible.
Yeah. And
now we've got like 10, 20 creators. Either have got it or have just gone over it. In terms of YouTube, who knows where it could be? If online blows up and becomes a thing, then my words, it's exponential.
For Ultimate Team sort of thing.
Well, yeah, it doesn't have to be Ultimate Team, but there has to be a competitive element where you say to your mates, I'm going to be better at you than this, and they go, right, well, how do I be better than you at this? YouTube, let me find out. Okay, draft strategies, I see. So that'll be one of the next. Someone will take this now and do it, but that'll be one of the next big creators. Someone that focuses on the online side, like just solo the online side. And so when it pops off, they're there as like, this has happened with online. It's partially my plan, so back off everything. Got her in the market.
Cut that bit out.
Got her in the market off quickly. But I think the idea is to continue to enjoy it. I think you mentioned earlier about people that burn out and people that stop and what have you, but that can happen to anybody. That's not happened to Z yet. He's still new enough. It's definitely happened to Jack. I think it's definitely happened to Loki. Kev's part machine, so it doesn't really have a soul or a conscience, so he just carries on. If I can still provide a life for my family doing this, then that's ridiculous, isn't it? I mean, good lord, who saw that coming when I got a cereal box at the age of 10?
I know, it's such a wild thought that that game that you played as a kid is your income.
Yeah, man. Crazy.
Crazy. But yeah, I think that's a perfect place to end this one on. Nearly hit the 2 hour mark. I think this is the longest we've gone. So thank you again for the time, mate. And I was unaware of how into your house move you were. I thought it was either just starting or you'd moved. So I appreciate you coming on for that, because obviously, the time is important around that time. But yeah, again, boys and girls and everyone, If you did like what you saw here, please do leave a like, drop us a comment, and subscribe to see more. Thank you again to Ben, top guest. I think we probably covered more than what I would have liked to, and or more than I thought is probably the right word to say it. And
It was just new, a lot of new content in today's.
Lots of new, mate. Lots of new.
I will say, if you got to this point in the recording and you've not liked it, you've really watched too much of it. Like there must have been a cut-off point where you thought, actually, this is not really for me. So if you got to this point, definitely like it. Let's go for 100 likes, easy.
100 likes, baby. Let's
easy.
Go. We'll see. Again, I'll keep you updated on it, Ben. Thank you very much for coming on, and we'll see you all later. Bye.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.